year.
Yeah.
But everything else remains the same.
Okay, thank you. And anyone else have any questions or comments? Yes, Jamie Jeffrey, Trustee Jeffrey.
Thank you, sir. Ellie, I just wanted to say thank you. I always appreciate you being very prepared when you come and share the information with us. It's easy to understand, and you're always a very friendly face. So thank you for being that way.
I appreciate that.
All right. Anyone else? No, and I don't see any. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your report, and we appreciate it and look forward to more recycling and more trash and no sick people.
So Mayor,
Yes.
we should have a motion to approve the rate increase.
Yep.
Okay.
Right, but thank you again. Thank you for your report. And
Thank you.
with that, I will look for a motion.
I move to approve the CPI rate increase proposed by Waste Management as outlined in their letter.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Yes. Trustee Ott.
No.
Trustee Kimmerly.
Yes.
Trustee Westcott.
Yes.
Trustee Antonopoulos.
Yes.
Trustee Jeffrey.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes,
Thank you.
and motion carries.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie.
All right, next item is the ratification of the Spear Canal Crossing Agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a request to ratify my approval of this agreement. So early last week, FRICO had sent this agreement to the town and city of Brighton, asking for approval of this so they could get their final permits issued for this project to move forward. And it takes them about 4 days to finalize their work after this is signed. So it was a time sensitive manner, so that's why it was signed and sent back to FRICO and the city of Brighton. This is a 3-party agreement between City of Brighton, FRICO, and the town of Lochbuie. This involves the replacement of the Spear Canal culvert on County Road 2. And just to emphasize with people, this agreement does point out that this culvert is owned and maintained by the City of Brighton. It's not, so the City of town of Lochbuie will not have maintenance responsibilities for this culvert. There's a quick update. There's a pre-con meeting tomorrow morning on site with FRICO and the contractor, the town and the City of Brighton, and Xcel to talk about the construction schedule. Kind of the outlying issue right now is there are 2 Xcel gas lines that need to be relocated. So the contractor is trying to get a firm schedule from Xcel to relocate those lines. And after that on-site meeting tomorrow, we'll have a better idea of an update on the construction schedule. And that's the latest information I have, and I can't provide anything additional until we get results from the meeting tomorrow on site. Anyway, the agreement does specify the plans which are attached and who's doing what and what's FRICO's role is on this project. So the request is again to ratify the approval of this agreement.
Okay. Trustee Westcott?
Just looking at the timeline that in the contract, the agreement, whatever it is, it says that FRICO starts running water between April 1st and October 31st. If there's any more delays, is this going to have to be pushed to October? Is that sort of what tomorrow is about, is figuring that out?
Yes, I think tomorrow is to finalize the logistics for construction.
Okay. Trustee Ott?
What time is the meeting tomorrow morning, Steve?
I believe it's at 8 o'clock, but it's with the engineers and FRICO and City of Brighton engineers.
And that's on site at the canal crossing?
That's correct.
Anyone else? Oh, go ahead, Dave. Did you have anything else? Go ahead, Dave.
I just wanted to thank Steve for letting me know what's going on.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Questions, comments? All right.
I think Solara had one.
Trustee Antonopoulos has a comment.
Go ahead.
Steve, I'm just curious. So, and I'm just looking at some of these plans, and you know, civil engineering is not my thing, but so when we're replacing it with a box culvert. So is that the thing that goes under the road?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
It's-
So we're making a tunnel that's going to go under the road. When is the road going to be widened? Or
This
are
will
we
all
just
be-
putting?
No, this will all be done at that time.
Okay, so we're doing everything.
There's an existing box culvert that's a 2-lane. So this will be, that existing box culvert will be removed. And there will be one large culvert replaced, poured in place. That'll be the width of 4 lanes and a median plus edges. And it'll incorporate on the town side a sidewalk that will cross the canal. And it'll also be separated from the travel lanes.
Okay, that was my question. Is I'm just, you know, and again, I know this project started a long time ago. The grand plan isn't necessarily in these documents, so that's why I wanted to ask. Like, so this project will include the widening of the area over the Spear Canal and include sidewalk.
That's correct. And then
Okay.
that way the County Road 2 to the west from the Silver Peaks frontage can be widened to the 4-lane with median to connect to this culvert crossing. And then as part of the Silver Peaks responsibility, they come back to Berkshire at whatever the last street is, at Wagon Trail. It's not Wagon Trail, so it's
Yeah.
but then anyway,
Basically,
they'll
from
come-
the bridge to Silver Peaks,
Yeah,
it comes back. That's okay.
and it'll
That was
go
all-
back to, and it'll go back into Berkshire and connect where the town stopped.
Okay,
And it'll be widened to 4 lanes, the full length.
wonderful. It sounds awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Anything else, Steve?
No, that's all tonight, Mayor.
Okay. All right, then I will entertain a motion at this point.
It's just a motion to ratify Mr. Staney signing the canal crossing agreement as presented.
I move for Mr. Sammy to sign the culvert plan as presented.
It'd be to ratify my signature.
Ratify your signature on the culvert plan as presented.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes.
Trustee Antonopoulos.
Yes.
Trustee Kimmerly.
Yes.
Trustee Ott. Trustee Ott. Trustee Jeffrey.
Yes.
Trustee Westcott.
Yes.
Trustee Ott.
Is he even there?
I'm not sure. Trustee Ott, can you hear us?
Dave is muted.
I think he's frozen. He looks
I
frozen.
think he's frozen too.
Yeah, now we've lost him.
Yeah, and now he's not there anymore.
Okay,
He's a magician, just disappeared.
all right.
Okay. Give him a second, just see if he comes back here. That's what happens when you're still using dial-up and AOL.
You have your majority, so you've got the
Yeah.
authority.
Now we can move forward. So, and with that, the motion carries. Okay. We'll give them the, so the next item is discussion about Raftalis water and wastewater cost of services.
So a little bit of background. So the town did take proposals and interviewed firms for preparing the water and wastewater cost of service studies. And our interview team did select Raftellus and recommended that to the board, and Raftellus was engaged to perform those studies. And Todd Cristiano is our the project manager. So he's here tonight to get input from the board on some rate considerations and other considerations for them to include in their work. So Todd, go ahead.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Like Steve said, Mayor and trustees, it's a pleasure to be here this evening and taking your time to walk through this with you. With Raftellus Financial Consultants, we are a financial consulting firm that conducts rate studies all across the U.S. We do a lot of work in Colorado. And in fact, we were fortunate enough to do the study back in 2014 or 15. I can't quite remember the exact year, Steve. But tonight we have 3 discussion topics, and we're not asking for any sort of decision. It's more of a discussion on conceptual level. So I'll just jump right in. We have a couple of slides to walk through. I've got an analogy to help us walk through what we're looking for tonight. It's about desserts. Everyone likes desserts, so hopefully that'll provide some context for you. Let's see if I can get there we go. So we're going to talk a little bit about the study goals and objectives. What are we trying to do with the water and wastewater utility? What was our contract all about? What is the rate study process? Steve mentioned cost of service. What does that mean, and what is that? How does that impact the water and wastewater utility finances? And lastly, we're going to do pricing objectives discussion. This is where the conceptual thinking comes in, where we get an idea of how the board and the community feel about what should be captured.
Todd, can I ask you just a quick question?
Sure.
Are you doing screen share, or do you want something up on the screen?
Oh my goodness. Let me see here. I had stopped. Well, I thought I had shared the screen here.
Linda, have you enabled his screen share?
Yes, everybody should be able to screen share. So Todd, if you have any issues, let me know.
Start video. Let's try that again. Okay, how does that look?
So at the bottom of your screen, there's a little green arrow that says share screen.
Let's see here. Let me try again. Integrated camera stop. Sharing. Yeah, it says I'm recording.
So we can share the, you just want to share the PowerPoint, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, give us 1 second and we will get that. Then just tell us when you want to scroll to the next slide if we go too fast for you.
Yeah, I knew this was going to happen. We had that conversation earlier today, didn't we?
That's okay. Well, we're prepared to figure it out.
Let's go to, if you could go to slide 3. Would be great. And let's see if I can see this now too.
Okay, we're working on it. Hold on 1 sec.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. There's my share screen. There we go. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, display settings, swap presenter. How about that?
Still is not sharing.
No, not yet. So let's see if we can you share it, Crystal?
Well, darn it.
That's okay. Okay, so Crystal's gonna, is it Crystal's?
Jeez.
Oh, now you're sharing your screen now, Todd.
I had to use the computer, I guess.
There you go.
Apologize for that. I'll speed up so we can make up that lost time there.
That's okay.
And anyway, so 3 items tonight. Study goals and objectives to give you an idea of what we're doing for the study. What is the rate study process? What do we have to go through in our contract, and what steps are we taking through this entire process? And the last is this conceptual discussion about rate structures. And yes, the rate structures, much like the rates and fees you saw on the waste management fee schedule earlier, we're talking about those type of rate structures. So I'll just jump right in here. The water and wastewater utility are enterprise funds, which means they need to recover their revenue, they need to recover their costs through rates and charges. So you've got your operations costs, your capital projects, you need to maintain certain level of reserves, and you need to fund your growth-related projects. And you need to ensure that you have what's called rate equity, meaning that customers are paying their fair share for the services they get. if you think about different sorts of customers, how they use water differently, that imposes a different type of cost on the system. So if you think real quickly about a residential customer versus an irrigation only customer and how they might use water at different periods during the year and how much they use, we balance all those cost requirements through developing a financial plan, a cost of service, and looking at rates and assessing plant investment fees. And I'll go over those in detail here. So the rate study process overall is 4 steps. We've got a financial plan, which tells us how much money do we need each year to meet our expenditures. What do our total revenues from rates, what do they need to be in order to meet our expenditures? The cost of service tells us, well, once we get this revenue, we look at all this cost, are all the different types of customers paying their fair share? Because all customers use water just a little bit differently and place different sorts of demands on the system. So back to my residential and irrigation example, irrigation customers tend to use a lot of water in the summertime and have higher peak demands versus residential customers who, although irrigate, that's not their only type of water use. So they may not place as much of a demand on the system. And those different types of demands and characteristics come at a different cost. So we look at our customers paying their fair share of costs. Rate design is, well, we've determined this cost that we need to assess to all the customers. How are we going to recover it? Is it a service charge? Is it a fixed charge size? Do we charge volumetric rates? Do we charge a inclining block, meaning as you use more, you pay more? What's the different combinations of structures that we can use to recover the costs? And finally, plant investment fees come into play here in that whereas the rate design are really designed for monthly user charges for the water you use each month, plant investment fees are those one-time charges for new development. So when that 7-Eleven came into town and built, they probably had to pay a plant investment fee so they could buy into the system and reserve some capacity for them to be able to take water and get wastewater service as well. So we have these monthly user charges and we have these one-time development fees. And this is kind of what we're looking for when we talk about these conceptual ideas of how should these fees look? What should we be recovering in these fees? Question? No? Okay. Okay, so give some context here. Your current
No idea, I'm in a meeting.
Your current water rate structure consists of 2 components. Your fixed monthly charge, which varies based on meter size. We have starts at $30 all the way up to $441.53. So if you use no water at all, you're still getting a bill for $30 if you're a residential customer. Now, for all the water you use, you get charged this volumetric rate, and as you use more, you pay more. So for example, if you use between 0 and 10,000 gallons, you're going to pay $4.99 per 1,000 gallons. If you use over 10,000 gallons, you're going to pay $4.99 for the first 10,000, and any increment over that between 10 and 20, you're going to pay $6.74. Those total costs added together equals your monthly bill. So we've got a fixed charge by meter size, and we'll call it a tiered structure for the volume rates. And obviously these things are designed to achieve different things, and I'll get into that in just a second. Your current sewer rate structure is a monthly fixed charge. For residential, you get charged $14.25, regardless if there's any sewer going down the drain in your house. But the volume rate for sewer, if you happen to have sewer coming from your home, is $4.50 per 1,000 gallons. So again, it's a fixed charge and a volumetric charge. They're fixed and a variable. And those 2 items equal your total monthly water bill. So that's where you are currently. What we're looking for tonight is some discussion about how should our rate structures look, or what should we be considering in our rate structures as we go through this process. So we need to start thinking about the end in mind here. Oh, before I get there, here's our plant investment fees, which are our one-time charges, and they are based on water meter size. So as the meter size increases, obviously the plant investment fee increases, and that's just due to larger meter sizes can put more water through that meter. And same thing with sewer charges as well. It's based on the water meter size, and you have a couple of different components here assessed to new development for the plant investment fees. Okay, so let's get on the pricing objectives. But before I get into more detail, are there any questions about the rate structure you currently have, both water and wastewater, or the rate study process about the financial plan, cost of service, rate design?
I'm looking for any virtual hands. Anyone? And I'm not seeing any.
All right, fantastic, that's great. So pricing objectives, this is where the conceptual discussion comes in. And I'm using an analogy of desserts because I really like dessert. So when there's all sorts of different types of desserts. Are we making a cake? Are we making an ice cream cone? Are we making croissants? What is it we're making? So we need to think about the end in mind. What is it we want this rate structure to do? What is it we want? What message or signal do we want to send to our customers with this rate structure? So in order to do that, we need to think about what is we want to keep the end in mind. And then there are some components that go into that to help us decide how we're going to design this structure. So like desserts, there are some basic ingredients that all desserts have. All desserts have sugar and milk. So there are some things within a rate structure that you just have to have. And those are, let's see here, revenue sufficiency, meaning you want your rate structures to recover your costs on an annual basis. It'd be silly not to design rates that wouldn't recover your costs. But you also want those rates to be defensible. So much like the sugar and milk analogy, those are the two things that are required in desserts. These are the two things that are required in a rate structure. So we're going to make sure that whatever sort of rate structure we look at designing and providing alternatives and bringing back to you to look at, they're going to meet these two criteria no matter what. Next, there's other ingredients in desserts. We've got cherries, you've got graham crackers. Those are not brains, those are walnuts. And salt and caramel, carrots, apples, butter. And you can have all sorts of combinations of ingredients in your dessert, just like you can have a combination of different types of adjectives in your rate structure. But unfortunately, some combos don't work well together. Mint plus carrots is probably not a good dessert. And so when you look at some pricing objectives for water, some of those combinations don't work well together. So if you take an example, if you're making caramel, if you have too much salt and caramel, that doesn't work out quite well. But if you have just the right proportions of these different types of ingredients or these objectives, you can come up with a rate structure that really meets the community values. So just the right balance of salt and caramel makes great toffee. So that's kind of the dessert analogy here. So when we look at objectives, much like the ingredients in desserts, we have a bunch of ingredients that we can throw into our rate structures to help design what it is that we're making. And there's 10 items here, and I'll walk through each of them. I've got some definitions on the following slides. And what we're looking for tonight is not so much what the rate structure should be, that it should be a rate structure by meter size and this sort of exact structure, but more of what are these ingredients do we need to consider in the rate structure analysis? We're going to come back to you with, we heard the ingredients you like, and we put together these rate structures that balance these items together to achieve what the board and the community is looking to have in their water and wastewater rate structures. So we've got 10 items here: revenue stability, equity between classes, equity within a class, equity between existing and new customers, conservation pricing signal, demand management, essential use affordability, customer understanding, customer impact, and ease of administration and implementation. Many of these are probably fairly self-explanatory, but these ones about equity can be a little confusing, and I'll be sure to go over those and get some thoughts on those. But before we dive into that, I want to give an example of what we recently did in Jackson, Wyoming. Is we had a stakeholder group and involved council in coming up with their objectives for a rate structure. They took those objectives and ended up making that the media content or what they published on their website about what their rate structure is designed to do. So they went through the exact same process of picking out those ingredients of what's important to the community and the council and said, okay, we developed rate structures that meet these 4 criteria right here, and they've used these as their talking points for selling or promoting their rate structure on the website. It's a little bit easier to do this than talking about, well, we have a tiered structure, this, that, and the other thing. Sometimes that can be confusing to certain customers. So they took these objectives and turned it into more of a messaging platform for them to help communicate what their rate structure does and why they selected that. So just food for thought there. So again, thinking with the end in mind, what is it we're trying to do? What kind of rate structure are we trying to make? And we need to know the ingredients in order to do that. And there's your balance of salt and caramel right there. It's just perfect. Okay, so we're moving on to pricing objectives and the ingredients here. We've got revenue stability. That simply means that the town would like to have revenues that are sufficient each month or on an annual basis to meet your annual, monthly or annual expenditures. We know that in Colorado, sometimes if you have a wet June or July, that can tank your revenues significantly. You can lose 25 to 35% of your revenues. So you want to make sure that with a revenue stability ingredient, you'd like to make sure that your revenues are stable enough to avoid having to dip into reserves or having that volatility. So that's revenue stability. And an example of revenue stability is you could charge all residential customers, or all customers, your water customers, $100 a month each, and you'd have perfect revenue stability because you receive $100 each from every customer every month, 12 months out of the year. But it doesn't really recognize how much water they're using or how they're using the system. So yeah, it's revenue stability, but it may not be very equitable between the customers. Equity between classes is when we look at the different groups of customers. You saw again on that waste management sheet that there are all these different types of fees for different types of services. Same thing here. There can be different types of customer classes that have different sorts of rates, and different customer classes, such as a residential class or a commercial or an irrigation class, all use water differently, place different demands on the system. So there's a difference in cost to serve them. And with equity between classes, or wanting to use that ingredient, it's simply saying that, hey, we want to make sure there's no subsidies, that residential is not subsidizing commercial, or irrigation is not subsidizing commercial, or vice versa. So that's what our cost of service analysis would tell us, is who's subsidizing who and how do we correct that. Equity within a class, that's looking at basically, if you think about the residential class, there's low volume users, there's high volume users. We want to make sure that the cost they're paying on their bill is representative of the cost required to serve them, whether it be a lower volume customer or a high volume customer. Equity between existing and new customers. This is the equity between, I've been in the town for 20 years. I don't want to have to pay for the new growth infrastructure. I want the new development to pay for that new growth. That's why you have plant investment fees. So right now, the town is actually maintaining this equity between new and existing customers because you have these plant investment fees that you assess to new development. That offsets the cost to existing customers. So you're already kind of meeting within this equity between new and existing customers. Conservation price signal. As you use more, you pay more. You want to send that pricing signal to customers to be efficient with their water use. And right now, you do have a tiered structure that does that. Is it as effective as it could be? We don't know. We're still looking at that analysis, and we're going to come back to you with some options on that. So do you want to continue to maintain a conservation pricing signal? Demand management, and this may not be totally applicable to the town, but if you had a water plant that was operating near capacity all the time and the summertime comes along and it's going to be extra dry, you might have a problem there. So you might want to have a rate structure that kind of mitigate those peak demands by certain types of customers. Again, I don't think this is too much of an issue in the town, but it is one of the objectives available to you. Essential use affordability. This is basically low income or customers that have difficulty paying their bills. Should the town be providing water at the lowest possible cost for essential water use? And essential water use is the water for indoor use, bathing, showering, cooking and cleaning and that sort of thing. Should the rates be at a lower cost for that essential type of use? You kind of have that now in your existing rate structure with water because that first tier in your water volumetric structure is at the lowest volumetric rate, but there's also ways to adjust that. Customer understanding. Obviously, we don't want to make a rate structure that's going to be totally confusing to customers. I once worked with a utility in New Mexico. They had 28 tiers in their volume rate, which I could barely understand. So you want to make sure that it is understandable and customers can relate to it, which also gets back to that slide I showed you about promoting those objectives of what's in the rate structure. Impact on customers. If you were to change any little component of your rate structure, even just a little bit, it can have a significant impact on high volume customers or low volume customers, even the middle customers. So even a slight tweak. So we have to be cognizant of that. And if that's a huge concern, there's ways we can mitigate that. Ease of administration, implementation. We all know that billing systems can be a little quirky and sometimes don't like to cooperate with different types of rate structures. But obviously, if this is an important issue with the town, we can make sure that whatever rate structure we look at coming back to you with in terms of alternatives, we can make sure that it can be implemented in your existing billing system. And that way, we don't have to worry about it at the 11th hour, realizing that we've done all this work and now it won't go into the billing system. So those are the 10 or pricing objectives that we would consider when we design a rate structure. We would take the items that are important to you, or you feel that we should capture in our rate structure. We're going to develop some alternatives, and we'll come back to you and say, okay, here are these alternatives. Here's how they'll impact the customer, and here's what they're going to be designed to do, short term and long term. So those are the objectives. Before we get started on discussion and feedback, I have just a couple of slides to show you in terms of revenues and how your rate revenues and classes and all that work with your finances. I mentioned revenue stability as being an option or an objective or an ingredient. Right now, you get about 42% of your total rate revenue that you get from your customers is fixed, meaning that $30 service charge. When you add all those up from all the customers over a 12-month period, that represents about 42% of your total revenue. That's really good revenue stability. The typical range is between 25 and 35. In Colorado, we hover between 15 to 20%. So not saying that 42 is bad or good, just saying it as comparison purposes, 42% is very healthy for the town. It means you have great revenue stability, so if there happens to be a wet month or two, you're probably covered in terms of on a monthly basis. But again, that comes at a cost, and that cost is a higher fixed charge to the customer, even if they don't use any water at all. And from the wastewater side, 46% of your total revenue is from the fixed charge, and the 53% from the volumetric. This is fairly typical for sewer. Not much variance between this and other communities in Colorado. Conservation. You do have a conservation-based rate structure, meaning that as you use more, you pay more. That tier 1 is $4.99. When you get to that 10 to 20 mark, it's $6.74, and then $8.49 for everything over 20,000 gallons. Now, the question is, are you looking to identify essential use affordability in this rate structure, but still maintaining a conservation-based rate structure? If that's the case, we can adjust these and look at these different tiers and better align them with how customers are using water, but also consider essential use affordability in there. So you've got a conservation-based rate structure. You're starting out with that. There might be ways to tweak that if you have certain objectives or ingredients that you'd like to consider in that objective. And let's see. Let's see here. Oh, and there's that example again. Just to kind of bring it all around. You know, Wyoming, they wanted conservation. They wanted to ensure affordability or that low-income essential water use, predictability. So there weren't huge swings in the bill from month to month, and obviously fairness or equity. So those are the ingredients. Hopefully the dessert analogy made sense of all those ingredients that go in desserts, and some ingredients together don't work well together and some do. I will tell you that when you look at, we talked about the fixed charge, that revenue stability is great, but it comes at a cost of those low volume or no volume customers are paying a higher fixed charge. So we'd have to balance that. Same thing with conservation. We need to balance that with revenue stability. The more extreme your rates are in those different tiers, the more variability in revenue. So you have to balance that with revenue stability. If those are two key items that the town wants to look forward to. So given that quick run through, we're really looking for some comments, feedback, and thoughts about, well, you know, I think we really should consider this in our rate structure, or we really should be promoting this in our rate structure. And there's no right or wrong answer. Just want to get some ideas, so when we come back to you for rate structures, we can try to develop things in terms of numbers from what you've articulated to us. So I'll stop talking, and Steve, I'll let you help with the questions.
Okay. All right, well, I'm just gonna jump out there and I'm gonna look for other people or other board members to give me a notice that they want to speak. But the one thing I'd really like to see is, because I know we've always been up there on our fixed rate, and if there is an opportunity, you know, we don't have all the numbers in front of us yet, but if there's an opportunity, I'd love to see the user rates come down a little bit, you know, keeping our base rate where it is. Okay, Trustee Westcott.
Yeah, I think, you know, since I moved into town in 2015, I think it was, that's the one thing consistently that seems to explode during the summer is people complaining about their water bills. And I think one of my basic questions is, in terms of our tiering system right now, like, how many gallons per month does it take to keep your lawn at the basic minimum for your HOA? And I know that not everybody's in an HOA, but I think that that's something I'm interested in finding out is, that makes sense. Like, does the tiering discourage people from maintaining their lawns? Is that an environmental concern versus, are we pricing things so that people can maintain their lawns as they're required to? But I feel like I'm not making any sense here. But what I want to know is if I water my lawn to keep with my HOA covenants, am I going to automatically be bumping up into those higher tiers because it's impossible to not hit those higher tiers?
Trustee Westcott, that's a great question with HOA. And do you pay your own water bill, or is it just billed to the HOA?
No, so there are 3 HOA communities within Loch Buoy, and that's correct, right? Berkshires, Bella Vista, Silver Peaks.
Yeah.
My understanding is that everybody receives their own bill.
Everybody receives their own bill? Okay. That's a great point. HOAs are a real sticky wicket because they do have common areas, which those costs might be rolled into the monthly HOA, the common area when you go to the neighborhood or something, or medians and whatnot. But in terms of your yard, I'm not sure how big it is, but in Colorado, if you think about the amount of inches of water you'll need in the summertime, it ranges between 12 to 15 gallons per square foot, depending on the type of turf you have. So if you were to look at your total irrigable area in your yard and multiply that times 15, you get a total gallonage you need for the summertime. And then you could just divide that by 6 months, assuming 6-month summer period, and that would tell you about roughly how many gallons each month you would need. Now, you bring up a good point, because when you look at this tiered rate structure we have, the 0 to 10, 10 to 20, over 20 applies to everybody, regardless of whether your irrigable area is 1 million square feet or whether it's 10 square feet. And it applies to commercial just the same, but commercial has much different landscaping, if any at all. That's one thing we can certainly look at, is come back to you with some more information about how the residential customers are using their water and where customers are falling in the tiers of, 97% of your customers are using in this third tier all the time, or give you that sort of information. Obviously, knowing each customer's irrigable area and whatnot might be a little difficult, but that little calculation I gave you would give you an idea of what, the optimal water use is, notwithstanding irrigation losses and all that other good stuff. So does that help?
And I think that the last thing that you just said about finding out where most of our customers are falling in the summer, what tier they're winding up in, I think that would be really useful information.
Okay, fair enough. One thing to consider too is when we're looking at this tiered structure. So am I hearing that is conservation still an important issue, but it's got to be priced correctly for where customers are, and is that kind of what I'm hearing, or?
Most definitely. I know there's a lot of people that have really lost their mind over over the price especially in the summertime. I know I see mine go up quite a bit. Like right now in the wintertime, obviously, I'm about as low as you can get as far as what we get charged for billing. Then when the summer rolls around and I'm watering, and I water, as little as possible, I'm still seeing this exorbitant amount coming up, and you know, it really does create an issue. And I know a lot of people can't really, or don't really like to do that. But by the same token, we are looking to ensure conservation, you know, because we do have limited resources, limited water, things of that nature. So it's like you said, finding the balance.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Dave Ott, Trustee Ott.
First of all, I want to apologize. My computer with the camera went out, so I'm on my computer with no camera. But at least I can hear and understand and talk and have some clue what's going on. I want to play the devil's advocate here. We've got some big CIP projects coming up. We've got the raised water tank, the 20-inch water line, possible expansion of the sewer program. I mean, my feeling is leave the rates alone, or if they want to raise, you know, the consumptive rates a little bit to keep up with inflation, everything else is fine with me. But to me, I would leave them alone for a couple of years till we get these big projects out of the way and see where we are. Because, you know, we're spending, I think that, you know, we don't even have a site locked down yet, is my understanding, for the raised water tank. We've got a 20-inch water line main still to run up in the north end of Silver Peaks. A possible expansion of the sewer plant. I just think at this point, lowering the, I love it because it would affect me too, but I'm playing the devil's advocate here. We have a lot of stuff coming up that we have to keep our water fund and our sewer fund solvent for the future of the town. That's my 2 cents for it.
That's a great comment, and I want to stress here that we're talking about the rate structure changes, possible rate structure adjustments, that it's going to be revenue neutral, meaning if you collected $1 million from your rate structures today, any sort of rate structure adjustment we would make would ensure that we're recovering the same amount of money. I'm hearing issues about financial planning, about keeping the rates the same, not having an overall adjustment. That's part of our financial planning, and that's obviously one of the options we're going to come back to with just a financial planning side, not so much a rate structure side. But so that kind of adds to the mix a little bit. That's good to hear when we just look at, you know, the total revenue you might need on an annual basis and how that might impact funding capital projects and that sort of thing. So we're going to do both of those things. So just wanted to point that out.
Okay. Trustee Kimberly?
I just wanted to, you know, just echo Trustee Ott's comments that, you know, the challenge is trying to balance, you know, affordability, making HOAs happy, and at the same time considering our infrastructure improvement. So I totally support his point, and I just wanted to share those comments.
Okay. All right, Trustee Westcott?
I'm going to yield for a minute to Trustee Antonopoulos, who's been raising her hand, actually.
I can't see her over there.
That's totally fine. Anyway, when you're finished, I can ask my question.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize. I can't figure out how to virtually raise my hand at all. So the option just isn't there. But I had two things I just wanted to, well, one statement and one question. For Trustee Trustee Westcott, you've seen my lawn and my garden, and in the summertime, my water usage increases by approximately 8,000 to 12,000 gallons per month, depending on how dry it is. So yes, it's a lot of water. My water bill in the summer is usually around $300. But my real question on this matter is, so Mr. Cristiano and Mr. Stamey, I guess I've only been on this board for 2 months, so my background is limited. I would just like some clarification. Does the town of Lockwood already do business with Mr. Cristiano's firm, or is this a solicitation for trying to improve our water rates? I just don't understand the exact connection.
So we used Raftellus about back in 2014, 2016. So when the previous board wanted to update the water and wastewater studies. So we went out for a request for proposals last summer, and we had 5 proposals to prepare these studies. And we had an interview team that interviewed the 5 companies that submitted. And based on those interviews, we brought to the board a recommendation, hire Raftellus to prepare these reports. So yes, they are under contract with the town to do this work and analysis for the town.
Okay, I just wanted to understand, sorry, I'm echoing. I just wanted to understand just the relationship because I wasn't clear about it. But
Okay, thank you.
very much.
That's, yeah, good. Thanks for the question.
Okay. Was there anything else? If not, Trustee Westcott?
So just back to the devil's advocate point, I agree that we need to be conservative. And I feel like that's part of the reason that we hire consultants, is to make sure that they are looking at long-term projects and factoring that all into reserve budgeting and all of that. But I am really aware of the situation that happened in Brighton, where they were essentially overcharging, at least my understanding of it, overcharging citizens to make sure that they had plenty of money in reserve. And in my mind, that's basically taking money out of citizens' pockets that they need to spend on other things so that we can, you know, be extra safe. And so I think what I'm just saying is that I want to make sure that we hit that balance of making sure that we are not planning for, that we're planning, but that we're not planning so far down the road and having citizens today pay for it. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Yeah.
Trustee Westcott, that's actually going to be shown in our financial plan. So when we come back to you, you'll be able to see fund balances, revenues, costs, and how we're balancing all of that. And to Trustee Ott's comment about the large capital projects, the plant investment fee revenue you collect, that will be used to pay for those large projects. And you also have funds to pay for those going forward. So that'll help mitigate the impact to existing ratepayers. So the whole idea is to balance those, put the money in the right place, have our rate structures achieving those goals that we've set aside, and making sure that we're not subsidizing and we're not gathering too many acorns in our pocket here. I did want to ask one question. Your current rate structure is one rate structure for all customers, and I had mentioned a few times that different types of customers use water differently. So if you think about the 7-Eleven that just went in, how they might use water versus how you might use water as just a residential customer. And the way in which they use the water, that really determines the cost associated with them. So I wanted to throw out the idea of the notion of, is there a concern about this equity between customer classes? Meaning, should there be a residential class? Should there be a separate commercial class? Should there be a separate irrigation class to maintain this equity? Or is the one rate structure fair for what the town is, what the town's goals and objectives are? Just wanted to throw that out there because I think that was a discussion item in the last study as well.
Okay. Trustee Ott?
This is in response to Trustee Westcott's comment about Brighton. The problem with what Brighton was doing was they were getting the money and the mill levy overrides for CIP projects, getting approved by the citizens and not doing it, and then rat holing the money. My understanding is the money's still there. It's just they have this huge over budget because they've never spent the money they were supposed to for CIP projects. We are being very transparent on what we are spending and where it's going and when we spend it for our transparency for our CIP projects. So I don't think we would have a problem with that. But I understand your concern of what was happening in Brighton. And that's what it was doing. They were doing all these, anticipating all these CIP projects, getting the funding for them, and then never doing them. That's where all their extra income came from, and it's still there. It just has to be. And of course, when they didn't do them, they didn't have the courtesy to refund the money to the citizens. So that was a problem in Brighton. And this is a comment to Trustee Antonopoulos. If you go down to the bottom of your page where it says, if you take your cursor, it says participants, and you click on participants, there should be a box that comes up to the right with all the participants on it. It doesn't? Okay. I can't hear you.
I think I figured it out.
Okay, and then at the bottom of that little box is raise hand.
I love it. Thank you so much.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Not seeing a whole lot of other comments. Yeah. I'm not really sure where we're going to go with this right now.
Can I ask a question for
Sure.
Todd?
Go
So
ahead.
if you had a different rate structure between residential and commercial, would commercial pay more, like a higher base rate or higher gallons, or how would that work?
I don't know. We'd have
Okay.
to look at the demand patterns for the commercial customers. You don't have many. So it may not have a huge impact on the rate structure you have now. So if we were to just to split this out now, most likely we would have a uniform rate structure for commercial. That's fairly typical. And that would adjust the volumetric rates and things for residential, but I don't know the severity of that. And we'd have to look at a couple of different analysis to do that. But part of our cost of service, we kind of break that out anyway. So it's kind of just it's kind of a byproduct anyway. Whether we decide to move forward with that is up to you, but I think it's just going to be kind of a byproduct. We typically break out the classes anyway. So we'll be able to tell you yes or no, but I can't tell you whether it'd be higher or lower than residential.
And just one question on affordability. In the past, we had a couple of trustees had asked and kind of favored including in the base rate, like 1,000 gallons or 2,000 gallons to maybe, which would benefit some of the lower income or maybe old town parts with smaller lots that don't have a lot of irrigation, but yet tend to be some of the lower income residents. Is that something considered or able to consider in your planning?
There's a couple ways to look at the low income essential use affordability. One is rolling it into the service charge. So one option might be saying, all right, for $30 a month, you're going to get your 3,000 gallons worth. Well, somebody else has got to pay for that because a lot of people use 3,000 gallons. Another way to do that is include some costs associated with that in the fixed charge to where it's like $33 a month and you get 3,000 gallons. The challenge is there that if you're a low income or essential use customer, you only use 1,000 gallons a month, you're paying for 3. So there's that kind of inequity question or equity question. Another option people look at is they might set their first tier at 0 to 3,000 gallons at a rate and then adjust the rest of their tiers. And that can kind of solve some issues on the higher end of the tiers too, because at the end of the day, it's all got to balance out and recover the same amount of money. So those are kind of the 2 or 3 options that can be looked at. Obviously, there's other options too that have nothing to do with the rate structure, like rounding up on your bill or working with charities to do that, to provide some customer assistance. So there's the rate side for affordability, but then there's also the customer assistance program side that might be an option to you if you don't want to look at incorporating some sort of low essential use affordability into your rate structure.
Okay.
From a municipal setting, has the Roundup program worked very well? From what, if you're familiar with that?
I know a lot of electric utilities do it.
Right.
There's not, with the affordability item in Colorado, it's really interesting that it hasn't got as much traction as it has, say, on the East Coast, where they're just facing all sorts of new capital issues and things. Our systems are relatively new compared to theirs. And you'll see the roundup of the bill, the Catholic or the charities that work with certain customers and kind of the LIHEAP program. The new one of the new COVID bills that just came out is providing money for assistance for customer assistance programs. I don't know much about it, but that's something you could look into as well. And that way you could use that without adjusting your rate structure at all. So,
yeah, so
a couple of options, there's no right or wrong answer. It's what's going to work for the community.
Yeah, on the COVID funds, we were told in the past that we could not use those for utility bill payments to the town because that was revenue replacement. So it was not an eligible expense.
Okay, I'll forward the latest to you. Maybe it might be the same thing, but I just received something today I can forward to you, and maybe it might be the same thing.
Okay. All right. Trustee Westcott.
I have just a really quick question. If somebody is behind on their bill and they have their water cut off, are they continue to accrue that $30 monthly charge while their water's off? Or does that stop once their water's turned off?
They continue to accrue it.
Yeah.
Okay, so even if I'm not using town water at all because it's been turned off, I'm still charged $30 a month.
Correct.
Stuck on it. All right. Well, my camera's going to look crazy here.
Just a quick question. So what are the next steps from your end?
Next steps are, when you think back to those 4 steps we had of the financial planning, cost of service, and rate design, we're going to finish up our financial plan and be presenting to you, Steve, some options in terms of annual revenue adjustments and taking into consideration some of the feedback I heard about the financial plan part of it. We'll be working on the cost of service and rate design. Once we get buy-in from you on the options and want to present that, we can decide on what path we want to take in terms of presenting that to the board or waiting until we have the full package of rates and cost of service. But obviously, you and I still need to have some more discussions about at least the financial plan, finalizing that draft.
Okay. Is there anyone else have any more questions, comments? I'm not seeing any hands. Oh, actually, Trustee Ott? You don't want to speak, Trustee Ott? Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, my feeling is just move ahead with the survey and let's see what recommendations they recommend to us, and we can decide what we want to do from there as a board. I mean, I think we've already gone this far, you might as well finish the rest of
it. Yeah, can't say I disagree. Yeah, because I know, as I said from the beginning, and you made it quite clear, we got to find that balance, and our balance is somewhere between the rates and keeping all our capital improvement funds, viable, keep everything. It's not a fun thing.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with that since we did this last time.
Yeah, no silver bullet.
No. So, Trustee Ott.
For the rest of the board members, I came on the board 6 years ago on a water rate problem. The water rates got raised through the roof, and I was all bent out of shape about it till somebody explained to me why they had to raise them. They hadn't changed them in like 10 or 12 years. We make it a lot easier on the citizens by doing this study every 2-3 years and incremental raises. I mean, if you'd have been here 6 years ago when they doubled or tripled the rates, the town was ready to revolt on the water board. So, and again, I was one of those people that went berserk, and once I found out they hadn't raised the rates, I don't know how long it was, I said, okay, it had been explained to the citizens, and I find out that if you keep things transparent with the citizens of the town, you don't get nearly as much pushback as if you say, this is what we're going to do, like it or lump it.
I don't know about lumping it there, Dave, but all right.
Well, you know me, Mr. Tact.
All right. Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right. I'm not seeing any. And I just say thank you very much, Mr. Cristiano, for your presentation. It's the second time we've seen this, or I've seen this, so we're glad to see you back, and I look forward to working with you in the future here and getting this whole thing done. And maybe we get through this whole thing, we realize we don't really have to change anything, and that would be a good thing. But at least we've done it, and like Dave, Trustee Ott had said, I believe it was 12 or 14 years the rates hadn't changed, and that was the position we ended up being in, and it created a lot of issues. I mean, we had a lot of problems within our water treatment system. We had leaking water tanks. We had one water tank that was blistered. We had an RO plant that wasn't functioning. We couldn't afford to fix any of it or maintain it. We now are in a much better position. We're now able to maintain and keep all that stuff functioning and keep the town moving forward. And this is what we have to do. So again, I thank you for your time, and I know we'll be seeing you a number of times more.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time and questions. I appreciate it. Look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
Bye now.
Have a good evening. All right. Next item is Staff reports. Chief, welcome to the Thunderdome.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Board of Trustees. Before I start, I'm not a water guy really, but I know that when Trustee Westcott was asking about that fee that you have to pay even if you don't use your water, I think if people look at that as a delivery fee, that's what it costs to get that water to you every day, whether you turn your water on or not. That's what that cost is for, I think. And I think you guys heard pretty much anything I've got to tell you about the police department about a week ago. We went over most of the things that we had already dealt with up until that point. So unless there's something in my report that catches you, or you have any other questions that were spurned from last week or anything that you've got, I really don't have anything for y'all.
Okay, I'm looking for virtual hands. Any questions or comments from Chief? And seeing none. All right, Chief, well, thank you very much. Hope no one else gets COVID.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is water wastewater. Mr. Ramey.
Speaking of water,
Yeah.
again, if there wasn't any questions on my report, I think I covered a lot of stuff last week when we visited. But you can see, as far as if you just look at our table, you can see that not much has changed from last year to this year as far as flows and loadings at the water plant or the wastewater plant. So, but it's that December time. Not a lot of water use. Everything's down low. So we're just maintaining. I did come to you guys in early December to ask that we get permission to repair the influent Raptor because it was broke. I just wanted to let everybody know that has been repaired. The parts have come in. So we're back to running normal down to wastewater plant. Everything's running good there. And then Linda, I have been working on some flyers for you. Remember we talked about last week about things not to flush down the toilet?
Yes.
I've got a couple flyers that the people here in my office and I have been working on. I think we'll have something to you before the week's out.
Okay, thank you.
Newsletter from my St. Vrain Sand District, my sewer provider, and they had a large overflow. They had one 2 weeks ago, which we talked about, but they had another one day before yesterday caused by wipes. So I could tell you that the Colorado Department of Public Health will probably give them one more chance to try to maintain that, and then I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't get hit with some kind of assessment report that they'll be required to do, and public education and all that stuff. So it's not just us, but I do got some flyers I'll get to you.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions? I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, I'm looking for virtual hands. And I'm not really seeing any. So what you're saying is I can't put my lawn clippings down the toilet? That's
No. If we get everything together, you'll be able to bring your grass clippings down to wastewater plant, and we'll mix them with the dried sludge that we're going to do.
Oh, and then we can have the fertilizer.
That's right, Trustee Westcott. I can tell you that dried biosolids from a wastewater treatment plant is the best fertilizer you can get for your grass. Because
right.
we use the chemical we use to take the water out of the solids actually is a polymer, so you see that they sell that in landscape stores to put around trees so they hold more water. A gram of polymer can hold 400 grams of water. So, just so you know, when I did my house, I have a 18,000 square foot lot. I put 85 yards of dried biosolids down. I've never had to fertilize my lawn, ever. And it is as green can be.
Right.
And my water bill isn't half of what my neighbor's is.
All right, Trustee Jeffrey?
Are we going to sell the biosolids to residents, or will they be able to get it for free?
Oh, it'd be free. I mean, you've already paid for it.
Let me know when I can pick some
Right?
up.
I mean, we used to say, when we did this at Louisville, we used to say it's just like Doritos. Take all you want, we'll make more.
All right. Trustee Westcott?
Maybe we can throw it in as a bonus when you hit the tier 3 on your water bill. I did want to let you know, Mr. Ramey, that this week there was a bunch of social media posts about how they were having problems with their water lines, and people immediately hopped on and said, "Hey, I got this notification from the town, and this is what's going on." And I just thought that's really good communication, and I appreciate the fact that we're getting information out to customers. And the only thing I was looking for was like, if they wanted to call, because you said last time, if customers have a question, they can call me. But I just really liked the fact that there was an answer out there and that neighbors were sharing it. And so that was good communication.
Good.
All right.
You'd be surprised, Trustee Westcott, how something as simple as one of the guys going up to a house to collect a water sample, how that can create fear and things like that. I'm not kidding you. I mean, one of my guys at the town of Superior, just day before yesterday, scared the heck out of a lady. You know, I mean, it was a Sunday. She wasn't expected. He knocked on the door. You know, we were trying to get samples in, and so he waited for like 2 minutes at the door. Nobody answered, so he goes around to the side of the house, starts grabbing a sample. Next thing you know, I'm writing a 5-page, dissertation of why we have to do what we have to do. So that's the other thing I think we need to be better about is maybe getting a water page or something on the web page that says, FAQs, like how many samples do we have to take a month for bacteriological? How many samples we have to take? I think if we can get that information out, people will understand there's a lot of moving parts in a water system.
Yeah. All right. Chief, did you have something? Chief McCoy?
Yeah, I wanted to raise my hand again after you called on me. Sorry about that. I just wanted to, before I forgot in my report, to make sure that everybody got the email about that had the codes to correlate with the crimes that we have. Now, that's not all of them, because there's a wide list, but that does hit most of them, and I'm sure that will be helpful when you go through there.
Yep.
That's all.
All right. Thank you. Yep. Okay, and
that's all for me.
Mr. Ramey, we appreciate it as usual. It was good seeing you. And we will move on to Public Works. And Mr. John. Public Works. Mr. John.
Good evening, board. I have the report for you. It's all kind of laid out. I kind of just asked for questions on anything that you see in the report.
Okay. Looking for virtual hands. Anyone have anything? And I'm not seeing any. And I really have nothing. So thank you for your report. It's quick and simple. All right. And we'll move on to Mr. Stamey.
Just 2 quick updates, Mayor and Board. So we will be setting up a formal pre-application with Quick Trip to look at their concept for the Antonoff property as well as their specific use. Again, that's on the north side of County Road 2, across from 7-Eleven. We also have a request to set up a pre-application meeting with the new owner of the property across from Blue Lake. So it's on the east side of County Road 37, south of County Road 6. So we'll be setting those meetings up with our development review team, and we'll be proceeding with those projects as they proceed with their information.
Okay, sounds good. Trustee Coomerly?
I just thought of something, so I apologize, Steve, for not asking sooner. The road work that's being done on 168th, your email said February 2nd. The road signs say February 1st. Which date is it?
Well, we were told February 2nd on one chart, and it's February 1st on another email. So, and the sign says February 1st, but the contractor's flow chart says February 2nd.
Okay.
So that's the best information I can give you. Hopefully we'll know a better date tomorrow And I'll advise the board what that is.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions or comments for Mr. Stamey? Trustee Antonopoulos?
Yeah, just really quick, Mr. Stamian, and this might be more of a City of Brighton thing, but one thing I've noticed is that the road closed sign basically at 50th and 168th, it's really close to the stop sign, and you can't really see it when you're turning right. I was wondering if it could be moved farther east by, I don't know, 20 or 30 feet, just so drivers coming off of 50th can actually read it before they're past it, if that makes sense.
Sure, and I think we can bring that up with them tomorrow at the pre-con meeting. There'll be City of Brighton and the contractor out there.
Right. Anyone else have anything else for Steve? And not seeing any hands, so, all right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
And we will move on to Mayor and Trustee comments. Trustee Ott.
I had a concern about something I talked to Steve earlier, so otherwise I have nothing else to discuss. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Trustee Westcott.
Yeah, it's sort of been, maybe I'm on a educational tear tonight, but I think that one of the things that that I could benefit from, and maybe just citizens in general could benefit from, is an understanding of how metro districts work. I think that most people that I've talked to have no understanding of why their property taxes are so high. They don't understand that half of that money is going to a metro district or what that even is. I think that they think that they're paying a lot of money into Weld County or into Lochbuie, and really, as we've mentioned a few times during these meetings, Lochbuie's getting just, pennies on the dollar. So I would just like to suggest that we get some training, some information on what metro districts are and how that impacts town governance.
Mayor, if I could.
Yes, please.
It's a really good issue that you brought that up. I'm glad you brought it up. Interestingly, I just had a call today with an attorney representing some metro districts down in Blue Lake who want to do some property moving around and want to come in and talk to the board about getting approval for something like that. And I indicated to him that we needed first to talk to the board about what a metro district is and how they operate and why developers set them up, and really a 101. So all I can say is that we can either add it to our training list, or before you have to make a decision on anything that has to do with the metro district, which will be coming up here, it sounds like in the next couple of months, rest assured you will be getting a 101 on how those operate.
Okay. All right. Trustee Westcott, you still have the floor.
That's good. I look forward to training. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Trustee Jeffrey.
Thank you. I was just curious if anybody knew of anybody that was potentially going to apply for the Hudson Library Board vacancy, and was trying to look and see when the deadline for that was. But my technology is being very slow. It was a very short turnaround. It was due by the close of business on the 13th. Did anybody apply for it? Just curious. I see Jim shaking his head.
No.
I know. Okay. Just as curious about that. Just am still eager to see us move forward in whatever way we can about the library, and I appreciate Attorney Giron's work on that. I appreciate the thorough reports that Chief McCoy and Town Administrator Stamey and Public Works Director Johns prepare for us every month. I think it's great communication. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Trustee Kimberly?
I just wanted to echo Trustee Westcott's comments. Not necessarily, from my learning, but for everybody else. And certainly I think it's important that we figure a way to disseminate this information to the community. Certainly, Mr. Ramey and I can have long conversations about biosolids and boreal to death about it, but the general public has no idea what the benefits are. And for myself, for sitting on the Weld County Board of Health, I know next week, I will have my list of biosolid permits that I have to go through and recommend up or down. But the important thing is to sharing that knowledge with the community and kind of finding out the best format, whether if we send it out with our utility bill or put it on our website. I don't know how many people will actually access it electronically, but I think it's important as we identify these different topics, we figure out a way to share it, because if we're discussing it, then everybody else doesn't know what it is either. So we gotta, I just throw that out of in subsequent, weeks/months that we figure out a good method to disseminate this information. Because I think it will go a long way of really not only educating the public, but so they have a greater understanding of what these things are and what the challenges are, whether it's from rate setting of water and sewage, or if we're talking about our tax bill, what does it mean and where does it go? So that's it.
All right, thank you. Trustee Antonopoulos.
I don't really have anything to add. I would say that learning more about the Metro District thing, I'm very interested in, because it's totally mind-boggling to me. So I look forward to that training session, definitely. But thank you to all the staff and to everyone.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. All right, I want to remind board members, you guys do have a mailbox in the office, and a lot of you have full mailboxes. So please, at your convenience, as soon as possible, if you would swing by and pick up your mail. You have full boxes in there. One of the other things that I'd really like to talk to the board about, or one of the things I want to remind everyone is to remind people that January, February, and March, if I'm not mistaken, they're Mr. Ramey and Steve and all you guys, that these 3 months is when your water usage sets your base rate for your sewer. So use your water wisely, reduce, lower your base rate on your rate on your sewer water don't use a lot of water in the next 3 months. Also, I wanted to bring it up. I want to put it out there to all the board members. I talked to Steve about it, and I wanted to put it out to the board to talk about having these meetings no longer virtually, but doing them, actually have the meetings while still allowing board members who may be at risk or are not comfortable doing that to still attend in a virtual setting. So that's just another thing I'm putting out there that we need to really discuss. But with that, hope everybody is having a great week and nobody's getting sick and everybody's doing their thing. And
for the elimination of the virtual meetings, count me in.
I already knew that, Dave. You gonna hobble over there? With that,
I will gimp over there, no problem.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
Right. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye. The ayes have it, and we are adjourned at 8:10.
Bye, everybody. Have a great night.
And
Bye, thank you.
Thank you, board.
Good night, all. Thanks for your input.
Mayor?